Welcome, everybody. It's Digital Divas, the interview time again. This time I have on the line with me Miranda Perumal. Miranda and I have known each other for a few years now. And every time I meet her, she's doing something incredible and dynamic. And, you kind of like are one of those impressive human beings that actually just inspire people, like not only women, because this is what this whole Digital Divas thing is about, but like actually everybody. Miranda, tell me, like, where are you actually originally from? Like, give me your background.
That's probably the best introduction I've ever gotten. So thanks very much for that. This is always such a tricky question, but I'm from Joburg. But what had happened was my dad had moved my whole family to Joburg from Durban, and they were on holiday in Durban, and I was premature. So I was born in Durban, in an area called Tongaat, but I was there for 2 days and then got put in the car and we drove back to Joburg, but raised in Joburg, been here all my life, never moved anywhere. So I say Joburg, but I think technically, like on documents, it just say Durban.
You're a Durbanite.
Oh, don't say that.
That's very, very interesting. I mean, Durban's cool, man, right?
It is.
There's no shame.
All my family is there. Listen, Durban Indians and Joburg Indians are very different. We have different cultures, different like ways, but yeah, nothing bad. But I'm Joburg. I'm from Joburg.
Fantastic. Okay. Right. It's really very difficult to actually begin because you've done so much and you're still so young, like incredible, right? You have traveled all over Africa more than I think a very handful of people have done. You have done 34 African countries. Okay. I mean, let me just say off the bat, let me just ask you, what's your favorite African country?
Oh, another tricky question. To be honest, I think it's probably Ivory Coast. I love Cote d'Ivoire. Like, it was so beautiful when I went there. It's got such a vibrant, like, French influence. The people are so friendly. The food is so good. There's like shishas everywhere. You drive in Ivory Coast in Abidjan, and you think you're driving to a petrol station, but it's like a shisha bar, and
Wow.
you can get a shisha at the garage while filling your fuel. Yeah, it was beautiful. So my co-founder from Scale, her name is Barbara. She lives in Abidjan in Ivory Coast, and I've been there a couple of times. But yeah, it's probably one of my favorites. Second would be Rwanda. I love Rwanda, Kigali.
Wow.
It is super clean. The people are, again, so amazing. It's such a disciplined environment that I really, really love. But yeah, I mean, I've got a few, but if I had to call out my favorite, probably Cote d'Ivoire. Yeah.
Amazing. I have not been to Cote d'Ivoire or Rwanda. I definitely want to go and visit, for sure. Do you think a lot of people are branching out and visiting more African countries nowadays? I mean, especially not only to be a tourist, right? But business-wise, what's your take on doing business in Africa?
I think it's incredibly fulfilling. Often I feel that from a business lens, people look at Africa as a numbers game, but it's so much more than that. Like, we have real lives. We have, yes, mega problems, big problems, very challenging markets. It's very hard to do business in Africa, but it's very, very rewarding if you get it right. And I think that the more we encourage people to do business in this region, the easier it actually does become for entrepreneurs, small businesses, and I think also, having said that though, there is a lot of people who are looking at a non-traditional route in terms of their career, right? Back in the day, even in my generation, you go to school, you finish school, you study, you find a job at a big corporate, and then you work in that job for 10, 20, 30 years, right? And you keep growing in your role, you climb in the corporate ladder, you're always looking for your next big move in terms of this business environment. Now, people are looking at other ways to build wealth and to not just to build wealth, to survive. And I think we're seeing more and more of young people that are wanting to start their own businesses using their skills and using their passions and stuff. But the market, specifically in emerging market Africa, is not ready for them to support that growth and to support, the way that they want to do business and they can do business. So I think the more we have some of the big influential players focus on our markets, the more we dig deeper, experience the culture, experience the nuances, understand the challenges, and the more we come together as an ecosystem, the better the environment and the landscape is for the newer up and coming generations to kind of flourish, right? And we've just seen that now with Kenya and the riots that happened in Kenya. It was the youth population that distributed all of that news via social channels that actually made a change in government. It is phenomenal. And I think we need to see a whole lot more of that.
That's amazing. Let's take it back a little bit. I mean, you started off in payments, right? Like, how do you get into that? It sounds very nerdy. Are you a nerd?
No, I'm not a nerd. Actually, it happened by chance, right? So while I was in school, I was working. I have a very rough childhood story for another podcast for another day. But I was working in school, so I was I had to hustle my way through life, basically. So when I finished school, I got whatever job I could get. I was working for a small business owner who used to build children's furniture. After that, I got another job as an executive assistant for some guy who was in construction. But at that point, like, I used to take leave from work to go work for a promotions company when Huawei was coming into the country. So I used to stand in the shopping mall 8 hours a day, 3 days a week after taking leave, just because that paid more than I was earning. Right. And I was so desperate to get out of my job. I was on LinkedIn and I was looking, and I saw this cool account manager role opened at a company called Tutuka. I didn't know what an account manager was. I didn't know what payments were. I didn't know what an API was. I was not tech savvy. All I knew was that I needed to get out of where I was. So I messaged the lady on LinkedIn. I sent her an email, applied for the job. I was on holiday at the time with my family, and I had no cell phone reception. So when I came back, I didn't hear from them. So I called the recruitment lady back and I said, "I'm so sorry, I was away, but is this role still available? I'm very eager. Please interview me." And she did give me an interview. So I interviewed for the role. I had no clue about what the business did. And thankfully, God was really good to me. I got the opportunity to kind of prove myself. Funny story, I tell this all the time. I don't know if I ever told you before, but I had the second interview with my CEO and I forgot my shoes at home. So I interviewed these bright pink, fluffy bedroom slippers, and I had this bright red hair. I love it. Please, give me a chance. And thankfully he did. But that was when, my kind of payments career started. I studied PR part-time at the Boston Media House in Sandton. So I studied PR. I learned all about TV and media and marketing and that cool stuff. And I ended up in something completely different, which was payments. But I always look back at that part of my life and realized it's when my life changed. And that was when, my career kind of took off.
Wonderful. What a great story. I love the pink slipper story. I mean, that makes somebody unforgettable, right? And I think in many ways, people are looking to employ, characters and humans and, not necessarily people who have gone the college route and know all the definitions of abbreviations and all that kind of stuff, but have no clue how to deal with people. Yeah. And I think, it's great that this particular CEO actually saw that in you. So then you got this humongously wonderful job with this global company. You were working for Visa, which is, I can imagine, like really, really like the most corporate thing you could possibly do. Okay. What was that switch like?
It was very hard. I think, when I was at Tutuka, I started there when there were like 20 people. And I left when there were, close to 400. So I was part of a very critical phase of that business's journey, right? And in that process, I built a family at Tutuka. I mean, that CEO, I always give him thanks when I look back at my own growth and my own journey, right? Even today. because he opened up a lot of doors for me. So when Taya acquired Tutuka, Taya acquired Paymentology, and they merged and rebranded under the global brand Paymentology. But at that time, they shifted almost, their focus almost shifted from emerging market fintech onto mature market bank, which meant that, you know, the focus really wasn't like it was over the past couple of years, where I was very passionate about Africa. I needed stuff to move in this region. I believed in it, you know, and I love the continent. And at that point, I realized, okay, maybe it's time for me to explore other opportunities. And I don't often get a chance to talk about this, so thank you for the opportunity. But I was like, super, in the most humble way, I was so proud of myself because the visa job description, it was for a senior director role. It was for head of fintech for the region. And it asked for an MBA, 10 years experience, and I had none of that stuff. I don't even have a degree. I have a diploma in PR. I only had 7 years of payments experience, you know, being at Tutuka. And I landed that gig when I was 28 years old, right? So I was probably the youngest SD in the region when I got that job. And it was very, very emotional for me to say goodbye to Paymentology because it was like my family. I felt guilty and I felt like I was letting them down and I was betraying them. But I realized that, you know, I still had skills that I needed to develop that I wasn't developing. And I still had work to do in this region that I thought, being at a global, one of the largest global payments companies in the world, I could influence the direction of growth in the region. And that was what I set out to do. So when I joined Visa, it was also very, very tough for me because I was faced with imposter syndrome. I was stressed because the commercial skills that I needed to deliver in my role, I didn't actually practice at Tutuka because it was very different. My job was different and what I was responsible for doing was different. So I had to very quickly learn how to do all of these things and work in a very structured and, the truth is, political environment, which is what most corporates are like, which I really, really struggled with, you know. Then it's proving myself because I'm this young Indian chick with multiple piercings and tattoos, and I've got this blonde hair, and I come to work in a tracksuit, but at least I can deliver on my job, you know, and in my role. So it was very, very difficult being there, but again, it was very fulfilling because I managed to tick a few boxes off of my own goals list. I managed to prove, you know, to people who look like me and think like me and that are my age and other females in the industry that you too can do it. You know, I was able to build a brand of myself, you know, inside of the visa business, specifically in the region, that helped me to establish trust that I wouldn't take back for anything, you know, as tough as it was, because it really set me up for success in this phase of my life.
Amazing. You have a hashtag on your Instagram account, hashtag business athlete. What is that?
So I got COVID twice, and both times it was really bad. Like my poor husband thought he was gonna, you know, kick it. And I gained a lot of weight in that period. So I was very, very heavy. And it hit my confidence like mad. And on top of trying to juggle this new job and having to prove myself, and I was feeling like so fat, I'm like, you know, I need to just change this. So I got a personal trainer and I trained with him for 2 years, or still training with a personal trainer. But I lost a hell of a lot of weight and it impacted my life in so many ways. It helped me work better. It helped me feel better about myself. I was always super conscious about my body, like from the time I was a little girl. Either too dark, or I was too fat, or I was too short, and I never made any of the netball teams and whatever else because I wasn't athletic. And I realized, you know, very recently that, hey, this is a thing. Like, I'm in business, and to be honest, being an entrepreneur is like athletics. It takes so much of your mental capacity and your like physical strength to get through each day. And that combined with, you know, training very heavy. So I do a lot of heavy lifting and I try and do a lot of hits. I do boxing. It really helps, you know, my mental health and just getting me through some of the tough decisions I have to make on a daily basis. So I call it a business athlete. So I'm an entrepreneur who trains as though I were a physical athlete.
I love that. I love business athlete. That's awesome. Okay, so then you decided that you had enough of corporate and you were going to be a startup founder, which is actually quite daunting. Please tell us about scale. I love the word. It's very simple. It's like, okay, we're gonna scale, and this your logo is of this beautiful big African elephant. Tell us about scale.
Okay, so I'll start just with the branding. You'll see the scale name is very small next to our big elephant. And that is because in my career, I was always the underdog that was able to pull off big things and, in my life. And I really appreciate that, appreciate a lot of that in my own journey. And I think that it resembles that entrepreneurs, female founders, brown female founders are underestimated. We're overlooked. We're not given the right opportunities. We're not given the right capital. We're not taken seriously in the region. And we are a force to be reckoned with. And that is why it's an elephant. It seems very calm and stealth, but that thing will shut it down, right? So that's what the brand kind of represents, that we can do big things in the region. Also, we focus on fintech or non-bank, which means, all of these fintechs, I don't think you'll ever be in a conversation with a fintech where they don't mention their need or desire or want to scale. That is what makes them successful, whether they're scaling across the region, scaling in their products, scaling their workforce, they want to grow, right? And that's what also resembles Africa. We're a growing continent. We are growing businesses, growing economies, and we have a lot to offer. And basically what we are is an issuer orchestration platform. In very simple terms, we are the single point of contact, the single conduit, and the only partner that a fintech requires in order to issue a Visa or a MasterCard in Africa. And we do that by partnering with the enabling ecosystem around us, which is the regulator in a country, a bank in a country, a third-party processor, a KYC provider like Smile ID who sits in your building, and other value-added services, right? And what we do is we streamline that process between all of these partners. We consolidate their services and we provide it via a single API into a client. And we're the single partner that they talk to. So fintechs don't have to worry about spending 18, 24, sometimes even 36 months rolling out a card program. Instead, they just come to us and we take care of everything end to end, give them a card in hand to give to their customers.
Amazing. And I mean, where are you? Like, you're obviously based in South Africa. Where are you active currently on the continent?
So it's 9 months ago that I started the business. We've got 4 co-founders, so we're 4 of us that are leading and building the business. We've managed to hire a couple people in our team, so we're close to about 8 to 9 people. Of those, about 80% is full-time, 20% is fractional. Yes, we're South African based, but we don't service South Africa as a primary priority right now. We're focused on East Africa, so Kenya, we're focused on Southern Africa, Zambia, and Francophone Africa, mainly Ivory Coast, Senegal. And the reason is because we know that there's lots of opportunity in Francophone Africa. It's still underdeveloped and it's still very much emerging, but we know that there's opportunity that we can capture. Hence, one of my co-founders, Barbara, she's based in Abidjan. She's French speaking and she kind of focuses on that region. We intend to go live with our solution in September in Kenya. That's our first market. We've been in this process of raising money, and maybe let me take a step back. When I started Scale, we thought, okay, do we go the venture route or do we build long-term, slow and steady, profitable business? And initially we chose the latter. So what we did was we looked at the market and said, hey, where are fintechs looking to issue cards, but they're struggling? While we build our technology, how can we help them? How do we solve problems and earn revenue to use that revenue to build a product? So we started consulting. So we've signed a number of clients in the last couple of months that are helping us run the business in terms of cash flow and helped to build kind of initial layers of the product. After a couple of months, we realized, hey, the market is evolving. Our competitors are catching on in terms of what we're trying to do. They have the resource and the funding to do it themselves. So let us shift the strategy so that we move a little bit faster, but we have enough runway for our own success. And so we went the venture route. So we've been raising for the past couple of weeks. We've managed to secure about 80% of our pre-seed round, which is phenomenal for us.
Fantastic.
Again, it's like, female CEOs can do this too, and female founders can do this. Very possible. So we're almost there on closing our round. And that is going to help us to accelerate deployment of our tech stack in September. And then we're playing in the big leagues, and we're part of officially, the Africa Tech funding story globally. So we're very excited about that. But to answer your question in summary, Kenya is our first market. We'll then expand our solution into Zambia and then likely Ivory Coast. But we're very much sub-Saharan Africa focused. And because we're a service-based business, even though we will productize via our technology stack, any sub-Saharan Africa market is open for us to do business in, provided that there are no local requirements of, kind of put all your servers on soil and hire, on soil people. That will come very much later on.
Okay. And I mean, has that been easy if for a South African sort of based company? You did say you have actually a rep from Abidjan, you said? But, okay, so not in South Africa. Do you see yourself leaving South Africa and living somewhere else on the continent? Okay, Cote d'Ivoire, maybe because you love it. Or what are your future goals?
To be honest, I love my country. I love my mother. She's in South Africa. She's in Joburg, and that would be the number one reason that I wouldn't leave. But I certainly see that over the next couple of years, we are going to be in the market quite a bit. So to give you a view, when we launch Kenya, we'll likely move there temporarily for 6 months, to make sure that we are doing business the right way, that we're in markets and we're present. We'll likely do the same for our next market. So I do see a lot of travel involved. Maybe later on, depending on, how the business grows and at what rate, we have every intention of becoming a global powerhouse. And I know that we will succeed in doing this. And when that time comes and it's time for us to pick up shop and go land in Southeast Asia or Latin America, I'd very much explore, moving myself and my mom to a different continent. But for the moment, as much as we're not focused on South Africa right now, I still want to pour back into my country and, be here, because I think that it's one of the best countries on the continent. But again, it depends on where the opportunity takes us. I mean, I'm super open, but no short-term plans to relocate permanently, no.
So amazing. Miranda, you are basically the queen of the pivot, and it's perfect because actually you're on a panel called The Great Pivot Divas Who Dared. And I mean, you dared leave probably a very comfortable corporate job to start your own startup. You have a podcast called The Underdogs of Africa, where you like to interview other entrepreneurs that are trying to do very interesting techie things in Africa. Wonderful. And we'll look forward to having you on the 23rd of August at the Digital Divas Summit. Last question. What key messages or advice would you like to convey to aspiring female leaders who would love to start their own companies and scale?
I would say dare it. I mean, do it. I think that when I look back at my own journey, it was extremely, extremely difficult, and it came with a lot of sacrifice, right? Like, I'm somebody who, I grew up with the bare minimum, but when I was able to grab a facial every month and change my hair color every second month and buy clothes every week and whatever, I ended up living quite a soft life. And removing myself from that financial security and sacrificing a lifestyle that I'd worked, so long to achieve was very, very difficult for me mentally. However, the reward and how I'm filled with purpose and my ability to create opportunities for other women, and not just women, but for other people in general, and for my team and for our co-founders, like, it's an incredible, incredible feeling to be able to give other people the opportunities that, we were given ourselves. And that came from taking the leap, trusting God in my experience, having faith that, whatever you put your mind to and you put your faith and your trust in will work. if you work hard enough at it, you surround yourself with the right people who are going to support you and help grow you and give you chances that, you know, seem unimaginable. You know, someone who's going to take a chance on you, those people exist out there, you know. So my advice is take the leap of faith. You obviously think logically through it, plan very well, maintain some level of cash flow that's going to pay your bills and your rent, you know, for a couple of months. But the world is very big. And I think sometimes, you know, we're so caught in you're getting paid a really well salary, you've got your golden handcuffs, you're very secure and stable, but you could triple that from one client in 3 months if you really put your mind to it using your own skills. So monetize it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been my biggest learning. And I would encourage, you know, other female leaders out there. And if it's not to take a leap and start your own business, pay it forward. You know, I think one thing I'll say there is often we look at the men in the industry to open up doors and give us chances, but a lot of the time, all the beef and animosity and the crap and the blocking comes from women ourselves. And we need to do a better job at supporting other women, creating those opportunities in a real way, not just for the PR and the LinkedIn posts and all of that crap. It's like really driving real value. And the moment you do that yourself, you see that it becomes a ripple effect and all of us grow together.
Amazing. Motivational, inspirational, great diva, Miranda Perumal. Thank you so much for joining us for the interview on Digital Divas. Digital Divas tickets still up for sale. innovationcity.co.za/Digital Divas. Buy them now before it's too late, because Miranda will be there. And thanks so much, Miranda. You're always an inspiration.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. And I can't wait to see you guys and all the other divas.
Yay.